Welcome to episode 57 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend Josh Adler. Josh, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Busy day, that's for sure.
I can tell, man. You're all worked up. We're having a little bit of tech issues getting on here, but we figured out, and now we're good. For those of you that don't know, Josh is the CEO of ConvertX, which they develop apps. It's an incubator, basically. You have tons of employees, very successful at a young age, which I truly admire. And I have so many questions that I want to go over. But before we get into it, how the whole, app world works, and VCs and raising money, capital, and all that good stuff goes. Let's talk a little bit about your background, man. You're a young guy, so how did it start? When you were a kid, how did it start? Were you tinkering with computers from a young age, writing code? Well, I say computers because I keep thinking you're my age, but you don't look my age. You didn't grow up in the 80s. So, yeah, you had computers. You had good computers. So you were writing code probably at a young age. So let's get into it. How did it all start?
For sure. So it's at a very young age, it started with playing with drones and 3D printers and building a lot of kind of stuff from scratch. And I find that most people don't have the opportunity to do this. And I was very grateful that I come from the kind of family that I have where I've been enabled with these kind of resources. And as time proliferated, I started building code at around 14 and really got into it. Love developing software. I'm the kind of person that loves to build new things. It's right. Create new things, create change and dramatic change. And that kind of proliferated with time where I started building software. And then as I started building software itself, recognized the challenges that you face when you're building software, whether it's the legal or whether it's the accounting side or whether it's even the software development, understanding the technical aspect of things, and then even launching and marketing the company. Most founders don't even know where to start.
Right.
And that's something I experienced. And most founders, and I'm sure you know exactly what I mean by this, they find a problem and they try to solve it. And at its core, that's what we did. That's what I built or what we've done together. And I'm not fully responsible for what I've created. I have a team of well over 30 individuals at this point, and we're growing at a rate. We've seen 1,907% growth year over year, which most people would call me crazy or an alien. So I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not trying to. I want to be my own version of something like that. But it's how I look at it is we're really kind of disrupting the market by, rather than just saying let's build software, we're saying let's build businesses.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. Okay, I don't even know where to start because I have so many questions. So let's start with ideas, right? You find a pain, and then you figure out that there's a pain somewhere, and you try to find a solution to that pain. So that's where you get most of the ideas. From a young age, is there a process that you follow to identify those pains and find the solution, or is just something that just popped out of you while you were working on something else, or something you noticed from just being out or working on something? That's the thing that intrigues me. How you get, because I wouldn't say anybody can write code, but we have lots of resources where code can be done. It's the idea that brings on the magic, and somebody like you taking it to the next level. So, but you still got to start with an idea, right? So where do you think most of your ideas have come from?
For sure. And it's really interesting. It's something that's kind of commonality in my family, where we have ideas in our dreams. Right. So I have a nightmare, and then the next night I think about that nightmare all day, and then the next night it's somehow I come up with a solution in that same kind of dream. That's kind of a replica of the one before. And it's interesting, but normally what I find is when you're exploring a new industry, when I was a kid, it used to be 3D printing. I bought a Cubex 3D printer, Cubify 3D printer, I think it was called. That was the brand. I think the company is now 3D Systems is out of business. I'm not surprised. And you've never seen a kid sit in their room for as many hours as I did, where it smells like burnt plastic. I probably lost enough brain cells that you probably would have. My IQ probably dropped 20 points. Okay. But I played with that a lot, and I tinkered a lot. And it's after a while of tinkering, I said, well, there has to be a better way to stabilize the build plate. So I put a pressure sensor there. I literally took a pressure sensor, went to a store called Sale, Sale in Toronto here, and bought a pressure sensor. So when the extruder would hit that point, it would move up a certain amount of millimeters, and it would check in 4 different points. 3 years later, a company releases a 3D printer that does that automatically. So it's just exploring your options and utilizing as much creativity as possible to really solve a problem. And I'm a very methodical person. Like, to give you an understanding, I spent 4 hours. I'm going on a trip soon and moving to another country, kind of trying to become a digital nomad, even in the time of like right now. And I spent 4 hours researching luggage. I'm very methodical.
You're completely opposite of me. You're like my wife, man. You guys should meet each other at some point. That's her. She's the analytical one. She's going to plan out the whole trip. And then there's me. Throw me in a plane. I'll get there. So what are you going to do? I have no idea. I'll figure it out. I mean, not with work. I'm talking about leisure. But that's really interesting, though, that you jumped so early into the whole 3D printing, because, I've seen it come from inception to what it is now. And usually I try to jump on gadgets right away. So obviously when Oculus came out, HTC, I jumped on it right away. Yeah. And then I got bored with it because I'm like, there's nothing that it's not there yet. It's just gimmicky games, like play with a lightsaber and stuff like that. No. I want to play, like, I want to be in a world like, I don't know, like Skyrim, and like feel it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and I guess that I'm older now, I have the patience for it, so I'll just wait. But even with 3D printing, like at first, it's like I wanted one so badly when I heard about it. But then it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this? Just print like one piece type of, like a nut or a bolt, and that's it. So it's really, it's getting to a point now where you can do a lot more with it. And obviously, if you're in industrial design or you're an engineer or anything like that, it's very useful. You can build a lot of stuff. But in the consumer level, I don't think it's quite there yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't keep up with it like I used to. But it's really interesting to me that you jumped on it so early and you started to play with it and try to figure out things. But that's hardware. But now you're in software. So how did we make the leap from hardware to software all of a sudden?
For sure. So it actually was created. I used to play with the Cupcake 3D printer. That was the first 3D printer I ever had. And there was so many issues with it, of just whether it's stabilization or the extruder is not pushing out things or it's not putting out enough. And it sort of pushed me into the realm of software itself, because I'm like, there has to be a better way to do this. And I did research and dug on Stack Overflow and GitHub and Reddit and just kept digging. And not many people were, even at the time, it was so expensive to have a 3D printer. It was like, $5,000, $6,000. And like, even when Google Glass came out, right? Like, I was one of the first early adopters, part of their developer program. I was building augmented reality apps when it first came out. Like, I'm always on the cusp of anything new coming out. And I have this kind of feeling inside when anything new comes out. I'm like, I have to be a part of this. Like, I have to be a part of this. Right. And it's just with 3D printing itself, when I found these issues, I said, well, the only way I can fix this is it's not a hardware issue. Everything's moving the way it should. It's just things aren't the right timing. Things aren't printing for long enough. It's not letting it dry long enough. The fans aren't at the high enough speed that it needs to be at for it to actually kind of cure. So let's change the software. So my dad said, okay, you're interested in software. I'm going to buy you a bunch of books for your birthday. And I'm like, books? Seriously, Dad? Right? So he buys me like 10 for dummy books of how to develop software. And I'm like, I'm not a dummy. Like,
the best gift ever. And now you realize it.
And then exactly. And then after, I was lucky enough that he said, Josh, if you finish all those books, I have your real birthday gift. And I was presented with a computer, which I was very grateful of, and a very strong computer. And I started building software, and it just kept growing and spiraling until I started building software and apps. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is interesting. And the hard part of software is, when you're manufacturing things, even with 3D printers, you'd sit in front of a 3D printer for 8 hours to build one item, just to make it work right, which I'm sure you know exactly what I mean.
Right.
Whereas like with programming or frameworks like Flutter, you can kind of execute on code or compile code like that. So there's no kind of lag or latency from idea creation to development to seeing the final product, like it is with hardware, where you have to go to China and get things manufactured. So it's very different, very, very different.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So you started creating your own apps, playing with software and all that. So let's fast forward a little bit. So I brought up the incubator deal, your company. So for those that are watching this or listening and you don't know what an incubator is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the best explanation that I can think of, if you watch Silicon Valley, where they create Pied Piper, it's an incubator. It's essentially somebody who owns an office or a house, and all these developers move in, and everybody gets the person who owns it, right, gets a cut of whatever that app makes. And I mean, in this case, I'm assuming you're funding it or somebody else is funding it, and you're helping them get it made. Correct? Am I right? Is that the simple explanation for it? I'm sure you can do it a lot better. So go ahead.
For sure. So that's their traditional definition, right?
Right.
But in the tech space, I don't believe there's any definition to any word because they're constantly changing.
Of course.
Right? You say app development, app development used to be native, and then it went hybrid, which means like for one platform or two platforms where it's not an optimized app, but now it's kind of changed over the years. But it's when it comes to an incubator itself, there's several variants. You have Y Combinator, you have Techstars, you have Noxin, and you have so many different types of companies that do different types of incubators or different types of styles, quote unquote, of incubators. But at its core, where ConvertX is really kind of, I don't even say that we think inside the box or even think outside the box. We think as if there's not even a box to start off with. Like there's no such thing as a box. We've never heard of one. There's no such thing, right?
We'll figure it out, right?
Just build something from the ground up that's one of a kind. And that's what people look for in life. They want that one of a kind feeling. So where we look at ideas is we say, okay, we're very selective. About 500 people reach out to us every single month with their idea. 500 to 1,000 people reach out to us. Sorry, someone walking by my office.
Okay.
But so 500 to 1,000 people reach out to us every month with brilliant ideas, like uniquely brilliant ideas that are just unbelievable. We then vet them down to about 15 to 20 per month, right? From those 15 to 20, we then say, okay, these ones are good, these ones are even bad, and I make the decisions as well as our board of advisors that ranges over 50 people alone. And we all vote, right? After we voted, the client starts off with a business strategy, which they self-fund. After that, they do kind of legal, soft design, and then development, and then launch. And then once they launch and they start gaining a little bit of traction, or even before they launch, using pre-user adoption cycles, like creating a landing page and using influencers to distribute it. So before even the software development starts sometimes, we'll try to acquire interest. If they acquire a certain threshold of interest, we'll fund the entire part of the idea for development and design. But in some cases, it takes launching a product to actually gain interest. And in those cases, they'll self-fund it, our clients will, and we'll offer the development services, unlike most incubators would. We'll launch the project, and then once they gain traction, we'll provide more money for marketing, right? And to really scale it, do their version 2, version 3, taking on average between 7 and 15% equity. And that's really where the ConvertX model is different, where you can own your model for the majority of the time, or even we can take no equity stake. But really having that kind of interest where we're a venture capital firm in disguise, whereas we have several venture capital partners ranging from the UAE all the way to Canada to the United States and the UK, where we can really help proliferate an idea from the ground up, rather than your kind of standard kind of company just saying, here's $150,000, find your own developers, find your own legal team, find your own accountants, find your own designers, and good luck, right? Which doesn't really make sense. It's not tactical. You want to company that knows what they're doing.
Now that you put it that way, you're right. It doesn't make sense, and that's why it makes sense that you're so successful at what you do and what you guys are doing. Because at one point I had friends with ideas for apps, and they came to me. It's like, help us out, blah blah blah. You have the connections in the industry and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, this is a whole vertical that I'm not part of, because you know how it is. Everybody thinks that because you deal with something, in tech, that you know everybody and you know how everything works. So, for what I remember. I haven't looked into this in forever, but is you come up with an idea and then you had to approach VCs and then pitch them. And it's like you said, here's a check for X, and then go figure it out. And then, the way VCs worked was, or is, I'm not sure if it's still that way, is they will fund, let's say 10 apps or 10 pieces of software or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And then it's essentially gambling with probability. Okay, out of these 10, 8 will fail, and then 2 will hit, and that will make our money back 100 times over type of deal. Is that the way that a lot of them are still doing it, and that's why you chose to go this way, so you can send them in the right direction per se?
Exactly. So it's building software is complicated. We help out with that. We help out with all the pieces, but we also connect them with venture capital partners, so that we can get them that funding, whether it's through us or through a third party. But we definitely help that with that kind of growth. But you're definitely right. It's still with that kind of mentality. I call it rolling dice, right? That's all it really is.
Yeah.
You pick a bunch of companies, even with the amount that we pull on, we can't guarantee success. If anyone could, they would have money trees growing in their backyard.
Dude, this is what I tell my clients with Facebook ads. If I could literally guarantee you 10x on a campaign every single time, I'd be on an island just printing cash, man. Yeah, people don't get it. It's that's not how it works. So.
And it's crazy to me. Like, people are like, oh my God, if I start marketing, your other clients have 10x ROI, I'm going to get the same thing. Like, why wouldn't I? That's not how it works, though. That's not business. business is that risk that you take for the high chance of really strong success, but only some of those businesses actually reach that. And I've had my failures, I've had my successes. ConvertX was a phoenix out of the ashes, to be very frank with you. And it's every business, you will have that kind of situation where there's that moment where it's going to be that deciphering moment, whether this will succeed or this will fail flat out. And marketing is part of that. Like we see a 6.3x ROI, which is unbelievable in our rate, in our industry. That's unheard of, right? We're trying to scale that right now. We're in the midst. We'll get between a 6 and a 10 on average, depending on platforms. But it's because we've invested, I don't know, over $100,000 a year just in marketing campaigns. And that's not even spend. That's trying different things. Just to give you an understanding, that's trying. That's not even like, we're not talking ad spend. We're talking like we hire 6 consultants that are all in marketing. Whichever one performs the best, we bring on our team internal. And then from there, we let him compete against other people. And it's like nonstop, ongoing competition. Whoever can get the best ROI, and they have separate campaigns, separate ad accounts. It's
let me in on this one, man. I'll put some people to shame. So
definitely.
We went into the story what an incubator is, but let's backtrack a little bit. So how do we go from you creating your own software? How did you start a company? Did you have a friend? Did you have somebody that approached you to do the first, to work on something, and then you started working on it, and then you said, hey, we need help. We need to bring on more people. Like, what's the story there? How did that happen?
It's actually quite interesting, and I call it becoming a founder by mistake, or starting a business by mistake. It's initially started off with referrals. Everyone, like you almost mentioned, I have a cybersecurity background, so I used to have buddies of mine say, "Can you help me hack into my friend's Facebook account?" I'm like, they're too no.
Yeah, I've heard that one too.
Breaking the law, and two, like, just because I know how to hack doesn't mean I'm gonna do that kind of stuff, or even I know how to.
It's not legal, man.
It's not like, no, definitely not. Privacy laws, please. But it's to be very frank with you, it started off with ConvertX was originally a software and a website and marketing company. It was never an app company, but I had the app background. So one of my clients says, "Hey Josh, I was looking at your LinkedIn the other day. You built apps before. Want to build one for us?" And I'm like, I don't know.
I know exactly why your answer was I don't know, because in your head it's like, I can probably do it, but if I fuck it up, this is not gonna end up well and I'm gonna be blamed for it. That's exactly what went through your head.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, listen, I built software myself, but it's like, I like building software when it's for the fun of it, not because I was making money off of it. And I was just like, well, I could do it. Like, I have the ability to, and it wasn't even a fuck up kind of situation. And sorry for my French there, but it was just like, I haven't been paid to build software by that time yet. And I was just like, well, I told them, I'm like, I've never been paid to build software. I do it for fun. I've done cybersecurity paid, but I've never done software paid. If you want to take the risk, let's do it. And they're like, well, how much? And I quoted them. And they're like, why not?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It sort of started with that. And then they referred me to another individual, and they referred me to another individual, and so on and so forth. And then next thing I realized, I had 5 app clients, and I'm just like, well, I just made more money off 5 app clients than I did off all my website clients that I've made in a year. And I did this all in 2 months with just bringing on those clients.
That's amazing.
Right. And I suck at sales. Like, I'll be upfront with you. I'm too honest and I'm too blunt. So if someone doesn't need something, I'll tell them. And that's my issue. Like, someone will be like, should I be spending money on SEO? And I'm like, I'll digest their whole thing. I'm like, no, let's spend it on PPC. And they're like, but why don't we do both? I'm like, no, let's spend it on PPC. And they're just like, I'll pay you more. Like, we need it. I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, you know what? That's a good quality to have, man. Take it from somebody who grew up in sales and old school marketing, before full-blown digital. And it's good to be honest. People appreciate that. You know what I mean? And that's probably why you get the referrals you do. And that's why you've been able to grow the company that you have today. So you start expanding, people started giving referrals. Obviously the company started to grow. Did you niche down in one vertical as far as ideas go that people were bringing to the table? Or at first were you just anything you could get your hands on, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, this vertical works better, or it does better, it has more potential, let's niche down just on this? How did you decide that? How did you figure that out?
Well, it's interesting, to be very upfront, because most software companies will either focus on one niche or another, but if you think about ideas, they can come from anywhere, from anything, from really anything in life. You can be an engineer and you can come up with an idea on how to remove trash better, or you can be someone that does hair and decide that you want to start a construction app, right? Maybe you might not be the most successful, but if you have the correct founding parties. But one thing that we found is in the same way ideas can come from anywhere, it's the projects we work on should be as well. And that's why we built on that advisory board of very strongly footed individuals in several different industries that can really help out, even if I don't have the specialty or my team doesn't. And to be very honest with you, we hired our first employee and it just kept scaling. And it was sort of a little scary that we just kept bringing on clients. And I'm just like, well, we have to bring on another guy. We can't keep up with it. And it just kept happening and kept happening. And it got to the point where we didn't even help with capital. And then we had venture capitalists reaching out to us being like, we've been seeing your company all over the internet, all over Facebook, all over Instagram. Like, we want in on this. Are you guys willing to collaborate? And I'm just like, well, I guess. Right? And it's one of those same kind of situations. And it's just like, it's been a dream of mine to scale a business this size already. And I've surpassed my dreams, to be very upfront. And it just keeps growing and growing. And it's some mornings I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, seriously,
right?
And not in a bad way, but in a good way, because I didn't expect this to happen. And I'm very grateful of it, but I didn't.
That's awesome, man. No, it's amazing. That's fantastic. So so the company's growing, everything's going great, obviously. Now we know that technology moves forward, and with technology moving forward, things are getting a little bit easier. There's more access to things that can do, stuff for you, like I was bringing up. So I'm sure you're well aware of the no-code movement. There's tons of apps out there. So I want to get your take on that. What do you think? And obviously, well, I don't want to throw AI because AI is still like infancy stage, and it's a buzzword, right? Everything's AI now, and AI is just dumb. It's like, hey, just recognize a T-shirt and that's it. We're not in like Skynet level yet, So what's your take in the whole no code movement? Because I mean, it has gotten a lot easier and more accessible for someone to create an app with using something like, I don't know, what's one of them, Adler, if you know what Adler is, one of those type of services. What's your take on that?
Well, personally, listen, I'm not a hater on anything, right? I think the advantage of creating something like that, it's in the same way, if you look at Tesla, they've automated the production line. It's just increasing the efficiency. And rather than people coming to us and saying, hey, I want to build this really simple app, which we're like, there's no sense in that. They have the ability to go to these platforms and save their money. Like, I'm not trying to get people to spend money with us. I have clients that will be like, I want to add features. I'm like, no, we're not adding features, right?
Well, this is what I tell people. It's like, you can use something like that to create your prototype and then bring it to someone like you, right? Where you build it the right way, I guess, or in a more complete way, right?
In a sense, yes. So if it's something really simple, like we don't build basic software. We're looking for something that can change an industry or industry landscape. So a lot of
yeah, I can hear you. It's okay. We can edit it. We can edit it. There you are. Yeah, you're back on. That's all right. We'll edit it. Just keep going. It's recording. Hold on a second. I got to put you back on. There you go.
There you go. Perfect. So, okay. So to be very frank with you, it's what I find the issue is these kind of prototyping or creation softwares where it's kind of no code or any of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of limitations, like quite a lot of limitations. Like if you wanted to build a network, almost like Facebook, there's no way you could use one of these softwares for it. It's not realistic. So we look for more so those kind of clients that are trying to build things of that complexity where they're really innovative and never done before. These kind of softwares are great for cookie cutter, where it's pre-existing things that you're trying to recreate, whether it's kind of a brick and mortar or a franchise, or with COVID creating a menu, or maybe a simple kind of like website but app version, which Apple doesn't even like anymore, because a lot of these kind of apps are now coming out and they're trying to block them entirely. They don't even accept them anymore. Google will, but Apple won't. So we're trying to kind of address an entirely different market than that kind of stuff. But I think it's a really great initiative that's changing the way that people adopt and create software, making it so that your mom, your grandmother, and your sister can become developers.
Or a kid, a kid can start playing with it like you did with a printer, right? And then get their hands on it in creativity. I mean, that's the way I see it. So, okay, so I can see that. As far as like the industry go technology wise, what are you seeing? Because I'm sure you're seeing stuff, 5 years ahead. You're working on stuff from like, that's going to be, 5 years from now, or I don't even know how to put it, but I know you get what I'm saying. So what is it that where are we shifting as far as apps? And I guess we can talk about phones too, because phones have been the same for a while now. There's nothing groundbreaking. I mean, the iPhone was when it came out, obviously. It changed the whole freaking world. But I think we got to a point where it's like computers. It's just faster processors, faster, everything. But the UI and the software, I mean, there's nothing new besides a good camera, a better camera, and a, better battery. So as far as like, software, what is it that we're going to be seeing in the future? I'm assuming more VR immersion where you can, be with people in places. I know Facebook's been working on it for years and years and years. That's why they acquired Oculus, and their whole goal is to get to like player one ready, type of deal. Is that where we're heading as a society with apps and all that good stuff? What are you seeing that you think it's going to be a major shift in the, in the next, like, let's say 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, no, it's unique because most people would think, sorry, my Siri keeps popping on, but most people would think that software is kind of heading in the direction of like AI and VR and augmented reality, which is interesting. And even the tech space, everyone thinks that, we're continuously coming out with new innovative stuff. But I think we're going to hit a kind of a wall at some point, if you understand what I'm trying to say with hardware, where it's just going to be like, I don't know if you saw it, but there was, I think it was the iPhone 8 or something, or the iPhone 6S, or I think it was one of those generations where it bent in half.
I remember that,
because it got so thin that there's like, we can't do this anymore. We just can't. It keeps getting thinner. It's glass, right?
Right.
So, and now iPhones are actually thicker. They've not gotten thinner. They've gotten thicker, right?
That's true. I didn't think about it, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, I remember that.
We've sort of hit a cap in a sense where they're just adding cameras and more space and more RAM and processing power, which next is cloud computing, but it's already happening. But I think where the next kind of shift is people saying, software is the new kind of hardware, if you get what I'm trying to say, where it's, oh my God, I just got the newest, coolest iOS that you had to pay for. So it's the same phone that you would just be buying year over year because it's got into its peak, and maybe every 5 years a new piece of hardware comes out, but rather the operating system you're actually paying for, which is crazy to think, which is what your iPhone runs, if people don't know, but to make it function itself. But that's where I think the world's heading, so that they're going to get to a certain breaking point, and it's just going to be software that people are paying for, and we're monetizing only software. And the hardware world is just buy a new version, almost like a car, if you get what I'm trying to say, where cars really better.
It makes sense. Like, for example, I told this story like a long time ago on here, and my friends know this because they laugh at me. I fought Adobe for I don't know how many years. I had a copy of Photoshop, the latest Photoshop at the time. I think it was 6. I refused to give out Photoshop because I didn't want to pay for it monthly, just out of the fact that I didn't use it that much and I didn't want to pay for it monthly since I only use it like once in a while type of deal. And this one, like we were going through the major shift of software as a service. I'm in marketing and sales. So obviously I know why some of them do it. And a lot like Salesforce, I can see why you're paying monthly. They update it all the time. It's something that needs, they do a lot of work on the back end. So yeah, it's justifiable. But there's also, let's face it, scams out there. It's like, oh, we're just going to charge you monthly and not even update our software, because we know we can charge you. So with Photoshop, that was a joke. It's like, I refused to update Photoshop for the longest time. And then one day I was like, you know what? I have to do it. I have to do it. So I did it. I bought the whole Adobe suite. And all the updates started coming, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I upgraded. So it's like, we're used to it now. You know what I mean? And, your generation, it's been with it the whole time. So to you guys, it's just normal. It's just what you choose to pay for. But the cool thing about that is, I think Salesforce was one of the first companies to go like full blown cloud and like sell it out there. I read his book. What's the name of that book? Building the Cloud or something like that. Look it up. It's the CEO of Salesforce. An amazing book. He tells the whole behind the cloud. He tells the whole story from the idea to building Salesforce to today. It's a great book. It makes sense when you're developing a software and you keep moving forward and you keep improving it. I have no problem paying for that, and people are used to it. It's like you said. We're hitting that point in technology with hardware where there's only so much you can do with the processing power. Obviously it's going to get better, but what do you call it? I just went blank for a second. It's going to get better, but you still got to keep up with that hardware. You know what I mean? Like, you can only make so many word processors that are going to take advantage of, the newest processors that we have, so that's my explanation on it.
And not even that, it's the minute cloud computing comes into play, you're removing all processing power from your phone, because 5G is now in Toronto, where I'm located, right? Do you guys have 5G where you're at, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm in South Florida. So right now where I'm at, it's very small. I'm close to Miami. So yeah, I get 5G, but not, the US, there's such a rural areas. You look at the map, most of it is rural, but the big cities, they're starting to get 5G. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And it's the minute that you get kind of 6G, which is kind of the next realm, if you know what I mean by that, of internet in its entirety, which is quite interesting to think about. But the minute we get to that level of 6G, which is going to be kind of game changing in my opinion, personally, there's going to be no more processing power need on a phone. So it's just going to be a glass display with local storage, or not even local storage, but just a glass display that's yours with a battery.
That's
crazy. And the minute that happens, why would you need to get a new phone every year other than upgrading? And every 10 years, they come out with a new generation of G or 5G or 3G or 4G. So you're looking at a new phone every 10 years or until you break yours. And that's why I'm saying we're shifting away entirely from hardware, and it's going to be purely software. And you're going to have companies like Apple and a lot more than that are simply just going to be selling their own version of operating systems, almost like as if you jailbreak your iPhone. And it's going to change entirely the way that people sort of look at having a phone. It's not going to be a phone anymore. It's going to be more so kind of a glass screen with a battery.
That's so weird. That's so cool though. But okay, so let's go back. So 5G. All right. I remember when 4G came out, and it was a big deal because of how fast it was. And I had a buddy who worked for the network side of things at Verizon, which is one of the biggest cell phone companies here. And they were, when they were testing it, they had download speeds of about 100 megabytes per second, which of course, that time it was a big deal. So when you go to 5G and now you're talking 6G, what is the difference there that opens up the software side of things that lets you do it? It's just no latency? Is that what it is? Just faster uploading and downloading? It's just basically what it comes down to? Or is there anything else to it besides just moving massive amounts of data quickly?
For sure. So how I look at it is you have LTE or 4G, same kind of thing relatively. 4G is like hybrid LTE or kind of anyways, but or hybrid 4G. But anyways, so it's how I look at kind of 4G is it's like home internet. And in layman terms, it's like Steve Jobs said, 500 songs in your pocket with the iPod. It's like home internet. Basically, It's close. It's almost there, but it's not exactly the same kind of speed. 5G is identical to the average in kind of urban cities. What you're going to get is home internet. Then when you get to 6G, it's unwired, kind of instant access to everything. It allows for cloud computing on a level that's unprecedented. Because imagine like Tesla, for example. Rather than if everyone drove a Tesla on the road right now, they still wouldn't be able to communicate with each other. It'd be the same thing as everyone not driving Teslas in a sense, right? But with 6G, each car would interact in the same way when you blink your flashers, or the way that we're interacting right now, where it's instantaneous thought. It would be the same thing between devices.
I didn't even think about that.
The minute you send a text, as you're typing it, it's instantly already sending. Like there's no delay. Normally you send photos and it's like, wait a minute, it's coming over, don't worry.
Right.
There's gonna be no such thing as that anymore. But the coolest part to me, and this is where it's unfreaking real, is imagine, for example, if you could do a hologram of yourself, right? And pop in a suit. And this is something that I've dreamed of, and with Neuralink that Elon Musk is working on, it's very interesting. But imagine you either put this adapter onto your head, it puts your eyes closed and puts you to sleep. But that device allows you to visualize through your eyes or through augmented reality or VR itself, virtual reality, another device, a robot or something, another device moving across on the other side of the world that's replicating quote unquote you as a dummy almost.
There's a movie about that. I want that.
And it's
amazing.
An exact replica of you or something along those lines where you can control it in real time with zero latency. That's what that's like, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I get it. It's like I would joke around with my wife is like, if it was up to her, she'll want to be in the 1950s with no technology. Like, I don't know why. Don't ask me why. And then there's me, like, plug me in, man. I want to be in the Matrix tomorrow. Like, I want to go in. I always joke around. If something happens to me, you better if there's a way to back up my brain, you better download it and back it up. Like, put it in a thumb drive or whatever. No, you're right. It's going to be so interesting. And, I was born in 1980. So, I got to see, my first console was an Atari, because my dad had one. Then my first computer was an Apple II because he had one. I was lucky enough that, he could have one. So I grew up around that, and I've seen technology shift from that to where we're at today. And hopefully, knock on wood, I can live another 40 years at least, and then hopefully by then I'll be immortal, and then get to watch this. Dude, it's been so cool to watch the advancement in technology from back then till now to what I see what's going with Neuralink and all that stuff. I mean, I can't even imagine my grandmother before she died. She saw what? Like, oh, we have electricity. This is so cool. And all of a sudden it's like, we have all of this, it's so amazing, man. Listen, I know we're running out of time and I don't want to keep you here too long, but as far as the company goes, where can people find you? If they have ideas, where can they send them? We're going to drop the links down in the description below, of course, but Josh, tell us.
For sure. So you can go to our website. It's ConvertX, and everyone spells it wrong. It's ConvrtX. There's no E. We do that because we're the black sheep in the industry. It's not spelled incorrectly. It's all purposeful, right? It's companies like Xerox and all that kind of stuff did it. We thought the same way. So it's ConvertX.com. You can check our Instagram out. We're big on TikTok as well. We have a bunch of influencers we're working out with. It's ConvertX_team. And you can find us on Dribble under ConvertX as well to check out our portfolio.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully we're going to do it again sometime soon. Wish you the best of luck with the company. You're in the right track, man, obviously. And again, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. It was a pleasure speaking with you.